So with that, I'll start the answers to the questions we've already heard. I've got 7 of them listed up there. The first one is really the most important one as far as we're concerned. It's the idea that the DEQ has not properly administered the statute and rules. I mean, that's our job. The legislature passes a law, the governor signs it, and then we're supposed to administer it. And if we're not doing that, we want to correct it. A second area where there's been a lot of concern is uranium. I'd say the most passionate issue I heard last week was non-compliance or exceedances in the groundwater monitoring wells. Close behind that is protecting the salmon trout river. There's concerns about hydrogeology. Where's the water going after it goes into the ground? A lot of concerns that the statute isn't restrictive enough. And those are the kind of concerns that we'll listen to and make note of, but realize the DEQ doesn't control the statute and the rules. That's the legislative and governor's function. So those questions are better directed to your elected representatives. And finally, we'll talk about background water quality and how that affects permit limits. So the first issue is the statute isn't applied properly. And the first example for that is nickel. And you know, I want to say before I go too far into this that that we've looked at the concern that we're not requiring limits as often as we should, but rather having only monitoring. And what we're committed to do is go through every parameter in the permit and develop a table that shows what the limits are necessary for protecting the salmon trout, what limits are necessary for protecting groundwater users, and then whether we feel that's appropriate to have monitoring only or an effluent limit. And nickel is one of those that's pretty close, and we may decide that we need to put a limit in on nickel. So let me go over that. The limit necessary to protect the salmon trout river, or more properly, the seeps or springs that will first, where the discharge will first daylight, is 29 micrograms per liter. In order to protect groundwater users, the limit would be 50. So if we're going to put a limit in the permit, we're going to put the more restrictive of those two limits, which is 29. The expected effluent value for nickel is about 5 micrograms per liter. To date, Lundine's discharge has not approached even that level. And what the permit requires is that if there's no limit in it, in this case for nickel, that Lundine would notify us if they ever discharge 5 times what the expected value is that they put in their application. So in that case, they would have to notify us if they hit 24.5 micrograms per liter, and then if we require it, either institute corrective actions to lower that level, or we could put a limit in the permit. So in this case, that notification level, 24.5, is fairly close to the limit we would put in the permit. So we're going to re-examine that, and we may decide that a nickel limit is appropriate.